In this video, I'm going to be philosophizing on self-existence and the existence of the self as being something that's important for any sort of meaningful living and healthy psychological functioning. How do we lack these existence of self and cultivation of meaningful living within the self that is associated with all of the prefrontal cortex, including the orbital and the medial prefrontal cortex, responsible for a large portion of our dopaminergic and cholinergic processes that are important for future-oriented, self-conducted learning and the cultivation of meaningful emotion associated with the release of both dopamine and acetylcholine, and which also are important for engaging in perspectives taking associated with new and different meaningful information processes that acetylcholine is most responsible for, and is also responsible for pretty much all our neurotransmissions. So to be able to even engage in meaningful learning behavior associated with perception, action, and or behavior that we self-conduct, we need to be able to have a healthy release of acetylcholine and to be able to endogenously, as in inside the body, generate that and be able to synthesize acetylcholine. And a great source of choline can be found in poultry such as turkey and chicken, but also in beef. You can get it in beef and even pork. Various meats have rich sources of acetylcholine. Dark leafy greens, you can find it in kale, spinach. Eggs have a great source of choline. It's probably the best nutritional source of all the amino acids to be able to synthesize all our neurotransmitters, as well as blueberries. Blueberries is very good for developing a lot of our capacities to improve our cognitive functions specifically, and to engage more of the multifunctionalities in association with our direct perception that is important for the synthesis mostly of acetylcholine, but also gamma aminobutyric acid. That's important for learning and memory long-term in the future, and also the cultivation of the existence of self. And our engaging in meaningful living associated with positive, meaningful emotions is associated with various capacities of the self to develop knowledge in association with what one finds to be meaningful in life, engaging self-intelligence processes that connect the limbic systems of the brain, the hippocampus responsible for memory, and to also create associations creatively with the prefrontal cortex that allow us to be able to develop this self-knowledge and wisdom intrinsic to the self that allows for the cultivation of what are more effective and efficient, meaningfully probabilistic perception, action, and or behavior that are better predictors that we can infer into the current to future oriented processes of what will be more likely to invoke positive meaning and affect, in which we can cultivate deeper wisdom in association with the self and self virtues that we can allowance more meaningful living, not for another self, but for the self, as we're better able to infer our own self, not that of another, and can engage more in this efficient, effective processing that we can opt for the better perception, action, and or behavior in association with the connections between various limbic regions that are associated with positive, meaningful emotion, and also the prefrontal cortex associated with the self, as we're engaging the hippocampus, amygdala, and insula that tend to be very important for the limbic areas that are connecting our positive, meaningful emotion and regulating negative emotion, decreasing the frequency and magnitude of negative meaningful emotions, but also which we can engage the meaning within meaningful emotions as we're connecting that to the various areas in prefrontal cortex. And we cannot do without the orbital prefrontal cortex or medial prefrontal cortex. Both of those are meaningful, and to have them damaged at all would lead to serious impairments and dysfunctions. So all healthy psychological functioning requires connectivities and the development of more efficient pathways that are meaningfully similar in regards to what allowances, this meaningfully similar perception, action, and behavior to be able to engage certain self-conducts that domain-specific processes of perception, action, and or behavior are associated with these specific pathways of association, whereas in contrast, meaningful differences between different sources of our self-existence will be reflected in different regions associating various areas of the limbic system. So that can be the posterior, which is the back area, or the anterior, which is the front area, the dorsal region, which would be the top of a section of the brain, that we can connect to various specific pathways of association that are domain specific to specific perception, action, and behavior. As we're engaging in specific meaningful perception, action, and behavior that is connecting specific configurations with visual artwork, sculpting, using various materials that you might find around in your house, you're engaging the back area of the brain that's associated with the occipital lobe, and also future-oriented motivations and optimisms as we're connecting that to the prefrontal cortex, but also regulating positive emotions with the limbic regions, and drawing from memory in more creative ways that is connecting the hippocampus to specific regions of the prefrontal cortex that's drawing on different memory storages of our vocabularies, well defined, in which we have specific terms to terminologies that we can easier access knowledge as we're engaging in that meaningful information process associated with the existence of self. And engaging in a faster, deeper range of only the meaningful properties connected to our existing from moment to moment, as we can cultivate the meaning in affect and not cultivate the meaningless affect to our subjectivity, we are better able to cultivate meaningfulness within being. And that's all I want to say for this video. I hope you have an awesome one. Keep developing this episode.